Hey, so today we're talking about Batman, the Cult. So this is an awesome 1988 book. It's one of my favorite Batmans of all time. I'm a big Batman nerd. I absolutely love, everything from like the early 80s onwards. Batman. There's been some great ones recent years as well. But this to me is one of the classic Batman books, and people don't talk about it that much. It's a book about basically Gotham being overrun by a kind of, almost kind of like Mormon-like cult leader called Deacon Blackfire. Deacon Blackfire, yeah. So basically he is a cult leader, and he's kind of, taken over the whole of the city, and then Batman is basically trying to figure out what's happening to people who are being kind of pulled down into the sewers to join this cult. It's by a writer called Jim Starlin. I don't know too much about his work. I certainly haven't read any other Batmans by him. Illustrations by Bernie Wrightson, colored by Bill Wray, and lettering John Costanza, not to be confused with his brother George. And this is kind of quintessential late 80s, early 90s Batman. So if you've read like the Batman Dracula series, it's kind of that kind of style of art. Lots of big gradients, filling backgrounds, lots of kind of almost psychedelic feeling to the coloration. And then it's the Batman that's kind of very tall, almost lanky, with a super long ears, kind of style of Batman that kind of proceeded all the way through, early 90s and the kind of Nightfall and all of those kind of era of things. It also makes me think a lot of Frank Miller's Batman series as well. A lot of the characterizations, the use of like news reporting and things like that as a kind of additional storytelling is absolutely great. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but there's just a lot of great kind of interaction between Batman and the villain, and you don't get enough of that, I think, in a good Batman story. There's a lot of kind of just like, oh, I'm going to try and find the villain, or like, the villain is doing something to Gotham or to a certain person. But in this, there's a lot of back and forth between Batman and Deacon Blackfire, and it just kind of it really escalates a lot. So I'm not going to spoil anything, but to kind of take care of this problem, Batman has to resort to the Batmobile being basically a monster truck, which I think is reason enough to read this book. But yeah, it's just an absolutely awesome book, and I can't recommend it enough. So it says on the back, Batman, for years he has been the Dark Knight of Gotham City, watching over his city from the shadows, weeding out its evil. Invincible, inviolate, he has never been corrupted or broken, until now. So bear in mind, he wasn't broken before. This is before Nightfall, so we're not counting that. But yeah, it's a great book. There's a lot of kind of like real kind of, Batman kind of losing his shit, which is, I think, kind of the best Batman, when he's losing his shit as Batman himself, as the Dark Knight. And there's a lot of great kind of like, Robin being an actually useful sidekick as well, which I think is kind of critical to a good Batman story. But yeah, it's really dark. It's very, very hyper violent. So kind of like a bunch of the Frank Miller stuff. There's a ton of blood and gore and just really freaky shit going on. And I highly recommend that you seek out a copy. I'm not sure if how well it's still in print. It's obviously a DC comic. But if you can find it, then Batman is the cult to join. Anyway, that's it. Go read something.